Why are you whispering?
We're on the schedule. I see many familiar faces out there. Hello, everybody. And non-familiar faces, hello if I haven't met you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pay attention.
This is a social media panel, so you are allowed to use social media while you're watching.
It was a selfie.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the first inaugural opening acts, and thanks, Cody and the vBrownbag crew, everybody. This is. I've wanted some sort of a conference to start up for years now, so I'm glad you guys are doing it. So let's start. We have about an hour here until the next panel, so we have plenty of room to talk. My name is John Troyer. I used to be with VMware. I am no longer with VMware. I am now working on my own doing tech reckoning. We can talk about that later and how that might influence what people are doing. So I think, let's introduce our panelists. Why don't we do that? As you can tell, we're highly
Skilled.
Yeah, we're all. This is blocked. This is rehearsed. Oh, this is going to be bad. Okay, well, why don't we introduce our panel, and you guys can just go down the line. Amy. And since this is a careers thing, why don't you give us your title too?
All right. Hi, I'm Amy Lewis. I run influence marketing for Cisco.
That's not a title, so
say,
you get one
like
demerit.
a job title.
We'll come back to that.
I'm Gina Minks, also known as Gina Rosenthal. I am the product marketing manager for Aperture at Dell.
My name is Jeremiah Dooley, and I'm a cloud architect at SolidFire.
And I'm James Bowling. I'm a principal of the data center practice for General Data Tech.
Since we are talking about social media here, let's, as a brief question, how much would you say that social media has influenced where you are today in your careers? James?
Oh, wow. So I can tell you firsthand that, 3-4 years ago, I virtually knew nobody. And now I've come across quite a few close friends now because of this. And has it helped professionally?
So sure, yes, you have somebody to drink with. But has it helped you?
Yes.
Has it helped you professionally?
Well, it has actually. I actually have a pretty good story. I left a company one day, sent out a tweet, and the next day had a job. I mean, it's great, to be able to do something like that. You don't really have to worry about a resume anymore. It's what do you do on Twitter? How are you on Twitter?
For some of us, it's not mandatory, but definitely
right.
for those of us in this tribe, that certainly is the resume almost. Jeremiah?
So I participated on social media almost not at all, and I was a EMC customer and had done a proof of concept for what was then, long before VC ever existed, the converged infrastructure product that EMC was putting together. And we had a whole bunch of problems with it that I was kind of venting internally with some of the people who were part of that project. And it was actually Chuck Hollis, who was at EMC and is now at VMware, who came kind of back channel and said, this stuff is great. You would get a much better response if you vented this stuff publicly instead of privately. And don't worry about your job, because that'll be fine, but you should vent this stuff publicly. And so started with the blog that was created specifically around converged infrastructure for the service provider that I worked for, and then moved that interaction over into Twitter and Facebook and some of the other stuff. So at this point, my professional community, I would say overlaps those tools pretty exclusively. Everybody that we interact with at some point, that conversation starts in person or starts on Twitter, but then where it goes and where it ends up really just depends on proximity, not
it's
topic.
Pretty safe to say that your network helped you land your current job.
Oh, yes.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Gina?
So I came from EMC, and that's where it started for me. I managed the SAN courses for the Proven Professional Program from Ed Services at EMC, actually. That's how I started working with Stu, who's in the audience here. I got pretty jealous of the vSpecialist team that was being rolled up, because developing training and maintaining the labs when training, especially for an exciting, forward-thinking class like SAN management, you see all this other cool stuff going around. I couldn't touch any of that because it didn't have anything to do with the courses I was developing. Couldn't be a vSpecialist because my kids were in high school. So I started blogging about education. and about training, which actually touches everything that EMC did, which was good. I was one of the first bloggers internally at EMC, ended up managing the Proven Professional community, which for ECN, the Proven Professional community and the support community were the two most active. Was pretty active in developing processes and making that streamlined and influencing people, and not influencing, actually mentoring internal people to participate. Dell recruited me because of that. They recruited me to take their discrete communities from the products that they had acquired, in particular Equalogic and Compellent, and create one Dell storage community, where I went over, it was great, got moved out of Massachusetts into the warmth of Austin, and was able to create that community. Got pulled into PR, which isn't a good place for someone like me, and wasn't a great fit, but they didn't know what to do with someone so social. I think that's a common thread. Did a short stint going back to training for a storage startup, and then came back to as a product marketing manager, which I do all the typical product marketing, planning, release, but my launches are more social than anyone else, and influencing and creating these processes to help everybody else get up to speed and to get our product people comfortable with being forward-facing. So I use it a lot. You might not see it a lot, but there's a lot of stuff that I influence to happen.
We'll talk about that in a sec, about the tools, I think. Or not the tools per se, but like using it in your job and how this is just a basic proficiency at some point. But Amy, how'd you get your job? Or you're a ringer on the board, because both you and I are kind of more in the social media as a practice job right now. But did social media help you get your job, or it certainly helped you get your current role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I only started tweeting 4 or 5 years ago, and this is my 4th VMworld, and so I'm a relative newbie on the panel. I got out there completely via social media. So yes, that is my job. It was originally social media for the data center group within Cisco, and we've kind of evolved the practice to be influence marketing, so more focused on the people and the content. So created a lot of different content vehicles and just kind of jumped in there and did it. And I think that's kind of my story. Is social allowed me to shortcut from coming into a community I didn't know anything about and didn't know any of the people, and getting to know a lot of people really fast, sitting in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, and not necessarily at one of the tech centers, not connected to a specific technology, but to a broad group. And social if you jump in with both feet, it takes you from 0 to 60 really, really fast.
Now we kind of have two audiences today. We have the camera, so people will be looking at this online. Hello everybody, we're not live. But then we have folks in the audience, and for people, if you are watching this online, I don't know, we've got 30, 40 people here in the room. And then the interesting thing is they are all, I feel like a little bit we're bringing coals to Newcastle, right? Because I see everybody in the room, and almost everybody here I know personally, or I've hung out with, or know from via Twitter. Or I certainly recognize your avatar, you know. And so, I hope that this is useful. I hope that this hour, this next 45 minutes, can be useful to everybody. So if you do have questions, we don't have a mic or anything, but think about things that where points of discussion that you'd like to get to. I think a couple things are going on here. I do want to know how you use social media in your job. Social media is such a dumb word at this point, right? This is 2014. Yeah. This is like saying, your job and the telephone, how it can work for you.
You should use it.
Is there anti-social media? Is there non-social media?
Yes.
Airport billboards.
Yeah.
People who monologue.
Product slicks.
You don't have an example?
I was really to have no example.
Social is such a social construct.
What about people still make product slicks, PDFs that have your bullet points of whatever's going on? They do airport billboards. That's all our budget. It should be ours.
That's a good part right there, though. I mean, that's what I find, and especially since I'm a product marketing manager, this doing social media and being social and getting a message out that resonates with people that actually use the product and that are the influencers to purchase the product takes budget, and it takes time, but it takes budget. And that's what I found, is just being able to get everybody on the same speed of why I'm actually helping them do their job by giving me the budget to do this. Yes. I will actually enhance what they're trying to do with the different other marketing organizations that we interface from a product viewpoint.
Yeah. I think there's, again, maybe two interesting points there. One, I think it's always been about connecting with your buyer. I think I would make the point that technical buyers are more important than ever. We could have that argument. There's still business buyers who still write the checks, but I would agree that I would say that with open source, with cloud, with the proof of concepts, with trial licenses, with you no longer do a handshake and then do $1 million POC before you decide on the $10 million implementation.
The business buyers are technical now. We're looking at business buyers that came up through the ranks we came up with, right? They're at that level that they just took the business route, but they have the same background that we do from working in data centers and
if I can't install the product, understand it,
Exactly.
and see the value in it pretty quickly, why are you wasting my time? So the people in this room and the people who are listening to this video actually have a lot of power. And so I think that's one thing we're seeing here is that the technical people, I know technologists, I know marketers who say, it's kind of an old school thing, I don't have to know the product. Like a marketer can sell anything. And I don't think that's the case with technology products today. So that's one thing. So your career is enhanced by the fact that you're a technologist and can do this. Two is, career-wise, we've always been told network, but I don't know, some of us are kind of introverted. I'm introverted. I get up here, by Thursday, I'm a wet noodle. I'm going to go home and sleep for 24 hours. This takes a lot out of me. We have a great time, but we're very extroverted, maybe behind the keyboards. Some of us are maybe extroverted all the time.
Yeah, maybe.
That's true.
Social media channels have also, what you all mentioned is this, I got my job via my network, I got my network via social. And I think social media has enabled has enabled us geeks to network, and I think that's a big part of it too. So maybe let's go into how do you use it in your job, in the job? We talked about that a little bit. Maybe let's talk about that or networking. I don't know what's the right way. What's the right place to go here?
So I think for us, so I'm not. I guess in a traditional enterprise, the group that I work with would be called tech marketing, right? But what we found is that there's two parts to that. There's the community enablement part. There's the how do we transition from evangelizing a product or technology or solution to how do we enable the field, the communities to better understand it, the salespeople, like how do we facilitate the consumption? And so much of that ends up revolving around the community, right? Not just are you able to get your message there, but who is it that's providing the message, and what tools are you using to offer the message and reinforce the message and support the message? And so this idea that there's no part of my job that explicitly says social media is something you must do, or community building or community interaction is something that you must do, but I look at what I'm being asked to do and realize that I can't be successful without those things, right? So the tools and the communities and the people in the communities and how it is that we facilitate the transfer of enthusiasm around any of the things that we're doing, I can't really separate it anymore.
Well, and I want to just jump in because obviously, just to be semantic a little bit, like social media I still do think of as a set of tools, because as you say, and I think there's a traditional understanding of get out and use social media, and maybe I know I've been asked, I'm sure people in the room have been asked, just tweet this out, just push this out, just use the platforms. But I think we all know without the joy of whatever you're doing, without the spirit behind it, that's why I'm a really big advocate of sort of, let's think about social media as the tools, but it really is about the community, the people, the content behind it, because we can all retweet something and send it to our, hi mom and like whoever else might be following me, but it doesn't, if your heart's not in it, like it's not gonna happen. So I just, to your point, like, and it often comes down maybe from on high of like, go out there and be social. Right. And it's interesting what they mean. I'm curious what you guys think about that, because I'm sure you're asked to do that in different ways.
Well, see, for me specifically, social media isn't exactly about the marketing thing for me, because I'm not in that area. Mm-hmm. It's more along the lines of a way for me to reach out quickly to people that I know can help me with a solution, or can,
makes you smarter.
Yeah, because I need that. But self-deprecating humor is the best, right? No. But in all seriousness, I've run into a lot of situations where I had an issue, tweeted it out, next thing I know I have a solution, or it got escalated a lot faster than it would through normal channels. I mean, it's...
And I'd like to go off of that. So as a product marketing manager, I'm on the product team, and my responsibilities are to train sales, to develop the positioning we want for particular products, and then to get the message out there. And then other marketing teams take it and go. So the couple of places, especially with what you're talking about, we have a social media person for data protection who's in the room with us today, and she manages for all of our products, but that's one of the things she does is she listens, and she's able to see if somebody's complaining about one of our things and they haven't already DM'd me, which is very helpful when you don't DM me, because I'm very busy and I miss it a lot of times, so it's too late. Then we're able to get it to a team. We've worked hard, and this goes back to my point about resources. And resources isn't just money, it's also people and the time and the bandwidth to do things. We've worked really hard to get some of our pre-sales teams monitoring our community. The Aperture community is by far the best community I have ever managed. And I don't manage it anymore, Marion does, but it is by far the best community I've ever been associated with. They absolutely, no hold barred, tell us what they think, ask questions, but they also don't let people just get in there and flame and say, this sucks, Willie. Okay, that's not helpful. Why does it suck? We don't even have to do that anymore. We've got customers doing it on our behalf, and it's fantastic. But you have to have, we've got, the questions that they ask require, in that particular place, and a lot of times on Twitter, require sometimes engineering support or support, which to be able to go and say, hey, I know you guys are already at 120%, but I need somebody every morning, 30 minutes just to troll through this. They're like, get away from me, are you crazy? So it takes a lot of educating those other teams that we're associated with that this is what I'm gonna save you if you give me a resource to do it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna annoy the crap out of everybody until someone answers me so that I can go and repost it there. And so it's taken us, I'd say, 18 months to get to the point where we now have our pre-sales team and our support guys who all talk on other message boards. They know how to talk. They know they're at work. They know what to do to answer the questions. So that's kind of one of the things I wanted to push on that. The other thing that I do is I manage launches. And on my launch, I don't even put it in a different category. I'll have a social media plan, which is based on what we're kind of doing with our demand gen. It's all tied together, the themes. None of my PMs are allowed to tell me that they can't blog. We've sat down and given them templates and walked them through it. We don't ghost write. I've walked my execs all blog. I've given them templates. I've put that up on my SlideShare if you're interested in it. Just what I've found is you make it as easy as possible. You offer them support so that they're not freaked out about trying to figure out how to do things. But it has to be part of the workflow, and it has to happen every single time, no matter what. And
can I just jump in, because I think what Gina said there is so important in terms of how you make that work for you in your career too, is that it has a cost, and to make sure you kind of outline that, and to elevate the concept of social media. It's not just us taking pictures of our breakfast and Instagramming them. It is part of an integrated workflow.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that I didn't do that this morning, but it's that it has value, exactly to your point, that it both has a cost and it has a value, and that as we think about integrating that into our career, that you both use it, you put it somehow in your overall package as you sell yourself, that it is about expertise and reach, and that, so keep the word social media out of it a little bit. It gets you tied in with like, oh, you're under 20, and it's seen as a little bit fluffy, and I think there's ways to package it with these meaningful and the economic drivers, that it's part of your value and included in your MBOs.
And I think if we talk about that as just techies, right, a lot of times, and I talk about a lot of this on my product side with people, a lot of times we get to the point where we are just fighting fires completely 100% of the time, right? And we've got the software that we've used forever, we've got these technologies we've used forever, we really wish we could get the time to script something or go to a class to figure it out, and we can't do it. It comes down to knowing how to manage your management and to sell to them, hey, if you send me here and let me learn how to do this, I'm gonna save you this much money or this much time, or that project you wanted me to do, I have the bandwidth for it. And I think using social media to communicate is the same way. Hey, if you get people answering questions before they pick up the phone and call support, this is how much money we estimate you'll save over the next quarter. We'll hold their hands till they're ready, and we'll walk it through it. It comes down to having, even though we're very strategic technically, or maybe we're very social and like to talk and just get out there on all these platforms, having this strategic business conversation that makes sense to the person that is going to fund the heads or give you the time to do it.
James, since it's not specifically part of your job duties, has management ever pushed back on your activities or the time you're spending?
Yes, yes, they have. But I've also been, my company that I work at now, before I came on, they actually didn't have anybody that was plugged into the community. You know, I guess that would be the best way to say it. So you know, the way I had spoke about it to the higher ups and my boss was, look, I have a finger on the pulse of the industry this way, you know. So when I go to these events, the people that I get to talk to, the random 3:30 in the morning conversations that I have with the guys, the NSX architects outside of the Marriott Marquis, it just happens to, that's the plus. That's the thing that they get, is I get that FaceTime with these people, right? So I come to these things and I get to, you know, talk about that stuff and bring it back to the company. So we do benefit from it.
Do you ever go into a customer and they already know you? I know you're on the sales side.
No, because I'm not a big deal. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, so yes, I have. It's happened before. So I walk into a customer and introduce myself, and they're like, "Hey, actually, I've read your blog," or "Hey, I've seen you on Twitter," and you know, it's kind of awkward.
Then?
It's awkward for me because
You just quickly say sorry.
well, you know, no, they're like, "I've seen your picture." I'm like, "Oh, which one?" I'm like, there's a lot of them out there. But, you know, yeah, it's awkward for me, or it was at first, you know, getting used to that, walking in somewhere and somebody saying, "Hey, I actually know who you are," you know, and I don't think of myself as anybody. I'm not a big name, you know, but I definitely put myself out there. Everyone probably knows me as just the drinker. You know, everyone's like, James is the drunk.
You gotta have something, James. You gotta have something.
Yeah, you gotta have.
They're like, he is the token Filipino guy that goes karaoke.
Well, you know, you do have to have this discussion with your boss, right? Because it does take time, right? It takes time, and you have to just have a discussion with your family, because it does take time out of that. I don't know, other folks, you know, this does take time. This takes nights and weekends. I don't know if anybody's working on a book or not. That's an incredible, that's a year-long commitment. But I don't know, I mean, Jeremiah, has this taken time out of you've got kids, you travel?
Yeah, I would say that there are many things about my job that take time. At this point, you know, the interaction with the tools and with the community, it's pretty seamless. I mean, at least from my perspective, I think that the tools are good enough, and the way we interact with the communities and how we bring new people into the communities, I wouldn't say that I have to necessarily set aside specific time for that. I mean, content creation takes time. So the kind of the micro content, the tweeting, the interaction, those things are fairly seamless. The writing blogs and creating, you know, demo videos and those sorts of things, those do take time. But I wouldn't. I would put those kind of in the context of that's what my job is, not something that I'm doing, you know, community-wise outside of that. So I think I'm pretty lucky in that regard.
I agree. My personal blog suffers, but I'm the same way. My job in of itself is very demanding on my time. I will say, back when I started, in addition to, the organization I was in is very, very, very conservative, and I had an external champion from the organization, which was Chuck Hollis, and you know, just keep that encouragement up to do things and keep going, but making sure that it kept within the charter of what the Ed Services team wanted. So.
You can go off the rails
It's
with this
easy to go
stuff,
off the
right?
rails.
You can be misaligned with your business goals, or you can just have an environment or culture that just doesn't like it, right? So, I mean,
You have to pay the bills, and you have to keep doing your job, so you pay the bills and take care of your family and feed the kids. I mean, that's the important thing to remember.
That's sometimes hard, though. You know, like I've found is that balance.
The cease and desist letters will find you no matter where you are.
So the balance, like you talk about that, right? You talk about how it takes up so much time. You know, when I got started, I was, you know, balls to the wall. Let's post a blog post as much as I can. Let's tweet as much as possible. And then I started to realize that it was actually taking me away from things that mattered more, I should say. And so you have to find that balance, you know, and that balance is hard to do. You know, I find myself slipping. You know, I go months without a blog post, and then all of a sudden I'll have this big spurt of blog posts because I found time.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So.
Well, and I think it's about integration because, and I know my role is different than what you guys do, but in terms of work-life balance, like I've found a way, I have to do it all together. So for me, I'm raising 2 girls. It's important to me that they understand that mom works in an industry that there maybe aren't a lot of women, but it's an open place for them. And so it's an opportunity. Everything is an educational opportunity. And I think anytime you can kind of make your work and life come together in that way, then it's easier to accomplish both of them. And that's why I'm a big fan of, like, anytime you can sort of say, this is justified within the range of my activities, this helps me be more effective in my job, that opens up that much more runway to do what you're doing and then amplify it. And I always try to wrap it in that language too. It's like, let's do what we were already going to do. Let's just find ways to turn the volume up a little bit. That's what this activity is. It's that little bit more that just turns the volume up. So it's not such a foreign concept, either to family or to management chain, that it all feels a little more whole.
I think what's interesting too is this is definitely, and in VMworld especially, is a huge community of practice. There's decades and decades of research on community of practice, and we just we use different tools that we're able to connect with people globally, which is amazing. But I think one of the things that comes with that community of practice is also the support. I don't think any of us like the idea of getting out of balance, and there's plenty of us that talk. I mean, I've talked to you and other people, you know, about that whole.
You mostly yell at me on Facebook.
It's not true.
It's very true. Yeah.
I can't help it. I have stuff to say. So, but I think we also like encourage each other to keep that balance and remember what's the most important, and you know, and to remember that this, you know, this stuff is there and it's always going to be there. Your kids being little is not always going to happen, you know. And so it's kind of, I think like, we get support from each other because we're part of this community of practice, and we all want to see each other still active and doing things and contributing that special voice that has this really interesting stuff to say about what people are so passionate about, the different, you know, technologies.
But don't mistake that support as something that doesn't happen without intention, right? So I think that there's lots of people.
Should I yell at you now or in a minute?
Feel free.
No, I'm just kidding. I was just joking.
But it's funny because particularly at events like this, the community has its own inertia, right? The people that you meet and the people that you knew and now you know better, the people that you didn't know and now you know, it has its own gravity that everything circles around from a community standpoint. The problem is overcoming gravity is not something that happens without cost. And so we've been doing this a long time. This is probably what, my seventh or eighth, you know, VMworld. And what you find is that while interacting with the community and being part of the entire community, every one of you is important and fun and exciting. At some point you have to dial that back, right? At some point you have to have that group of people who are part of your community, but who are part of an inner circle of people who are going to pull you out of that a little bit, right? I mean, who are going to check you when you need it, who are going to yell at you on Facebook when you're saying stupid things, who are, you know, the people.
That's fine.
You know, there's the idea. This pull of the community can be very addictive, right? It can be very much something that you throw yourself into and lose perspective on or lose context on. And so having that group of people who can pull you away from yelling at NSX engineers at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, I think it's important. But the most critical part there is that doesn't happen by accident. You won't find those people. Those people won't know that you need that type of support unless you tell them. So the community is awesome, and I love every part of it. But inside, no matter how extroverted you are, sometimes it's good to pull that back a little bit and not have that level of exposure.
Yeah, that's other jobs too, especially in ours, can be kind of all-consuming because we're kind of doing what our passion is. And the social media is a reflection of our passion, right? It's not.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask some question like, this is not for the lazy, but that's like the wrong frame for this. But it's definitely for the passionate.
I always say it's the kids who wanted extra credit. So every time when I'm pushing this to executives and they're like, oh, it keeps people from doing their real job, I'm like, every person, go down this list, every single one. These are the kids who wanted the extra credit assignments. These are +1, to put it in Twitter terms. Everybody is +1. Because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't start as your core job. It starts as this thing that you stay up at night to do a podcast, you blog on the weekend. Like, you find that extra time in your life, and when you're lucky and you push back enough, you can make it part of your whole job. Yeah. But it's not for the lazy. It's not.
The nice thing, it happens kind of quickly, and that it can happen quickly. Like if you do push and do work on stuff at night, you can get over the hump pretty quickly. You can know a lot of people pretty quickly, and it's not like training for the Olympics, right? It can happen in 6 months or 12 months. But anyway, Gina, I catch up.
So back to the research on community of practice. there's a participation in an equality rule, and they started doing these kind of studies on online interactions in online communities 25 years ago.
Sure.
And so I'm saying this just to say that not everyone is going to make this their job or make it part of their job, but everybody who is out there is participating, even if you're a lurker. So the participation in equality rules, some of y'all might know it, says that 1% of the people are going to be these people who wanted the extra credit assignments. They're going to be the ones that do everything, are all crazy and sit up on panels and talk like they know something and all that kind of stuff. And there's another 9% that are going to be out, adding to the conversation every once in a while when it makes sense to them and they do it. And then there's 90% of people that just lurk and read. That makes up the entire community. So even if you never write a blog post or just read everybody's tweets and just to figure out where everybody is, you're still part of the community. And you don't have to think that you have to go out and make this your career, even though you're really excited about it and you love consuming it or using it. Because I think sometimes people are in that 90%. They may not retweet or write a blog post, but they talk to people about what they read and hear. So
they talk to people who spend money.
And
they talk to people who make decisions.
And it's an interesting question. If people go into a place where they want to, they're in an active job search. Do they need to come out of lurking? Have you built enough? I just think that's a really interesting point. Like, I agree, the lurking is important too, because you educate and you prepare yourself for your next role. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, that might be an interesting point. I don't know if people have thoughts about that. If you have to come out to be able to look for that next job, like you were saying, James, you sent a tweet, or
It just happened there, right? I mean, so I think that's what it is, and then that converted you to something else. So.
Yeah, sometimes the things that happen, you don't realize that it's happening because of social media or your involvement. It becomes such a big part of your life that it's just normal for you to get up in the morning and
check Twitter?
Yeah, and check Twitter immediately.
You're laying in bed.
No, or sit here like we were sitting here. I see you over there with your phone. You're over there right now.
But did you see last night, there are like 90% of people right now, and it's a picture of somebody like this laying in bed.
Oh, absolutely.
It's interesting though. I mean, there's 20,000 people here at this conference. I don't know what this year is. 23. I don't know what the number is. And there's 26. There's 50 people, it's a couple hundred people in this room altogether in the opening acts. So we have already kind of had an interesting, weird self-selection. I don't know why the rest of the other 26,000 people aren't here. I mean, because they're really, everybody who's here has kind of felt that it's worked for them. I don't know, just a show of hands, is anybody here, I know if you're here, you're somehow clued in. Is anybody here at VMworld for the first time? Because not everybody can come.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
awesome.
That is so awesome.
I feel like you're already friends, and I know many of you from Twitter that people that raise their hand. But welcome, and have a good time. Yeah. It's crazy. But you're already ahead of the game by being here.
Definitely.
One thing I wanted to ask is about fear and about putting yourself out there. And doing the Geek Whisperers with Amy, we've been doing a lot of work on working with marketers or working with people about. There's kind of the old school way of doing it when these tools weren't there. Is you produced a piece of content or something and you published it. I wrote a white paper, I put it on the web, right? And maybe my name was on it, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was just by Faceless Corporation, Inc. and maybe I spoke at conferences, maybe I didn't, but I was definitely I wasn't out there. Even for old school PR people, right? They're not out there, they're behind the scenes. All of a sudden, it's your face, right? It's Gina's blog post, it's, you're out there. And whether your job is as an evangelist or as a marketer, or as an implementer, suddenly it's you. It's in your personality, and that's different, right? And there's a I don't want to call it a generation of people because I don't like to put people in generations, but there's a kind of an old school way of doing it I would never do that. I could never get out there and do that. I don't know, Gina. You say you try to get everybody blogging. Do you get a lot of people going? That's not for me. I'm behind the scenes.
Yeah, they do it. If they're on my product team, they don't have a choice and they know it. And y'all may not have noticed, but I can be very persuasive.
Persuasive.
That can be red crack the whip.
So the people on my product team don't have a choice, but they don't want to. They haven't wanted to. But my main PM for my main product, he now does it automatically. He understands what to do. It's just a matter of, I think the fear comes from not knowing how to do it. So we do a lot of, my biggest advice for people to blog is sit down and write it in a Word doc, and I'll help you, figure it out. But just write it like you bring somebody else who's technical to lunch, and you're writing about what you're doing. That's what you want to do. And then we'll see how many blog posts come out of it when you're finished. And that's worked every time. I usually get 2 or 3 blog posts out of that one exercise. So then I show them how to, okay, let's reformat this so it looks a little better, and let's put links here. But that way it's always in their voice, and it sounds like them, because my voice is very distinctive. If I edit it too much, people will know that I helped. And I don't want that. I want it to be a bunch of different voices from Dell, because honestly, when I went to Dell,
nobody needs another over-edited corporate.
Well, the first time I went to Dell, I was surprised how many super technical people there are. I mean, because I was at EMC, and of course EMC is the most technical place you can be. So when I went to Dell, I was floored how many.
I didn't mean to laugh out loud about that, but
how many? And there's lots of technical people at EMC too. You're making bad faces at me. But I was just surprised that there's all these people at Dell that did not have. I think if you stop, Jeremiah. If you look at especially our experiences, and I think that EMC had played a huge role in this community in getting people into social media and getting them out there. And it was a huge focus at EMC, and everybody took up the call, and everybody did it, and everybody had support to do it. And other companies don't, so you don't hear from it as much. And that's one of my passions at Dell, is there are so many really incredibly talented people, and I want everyone to hear those voices. So that's the one thing. If they're not on my team, then I convince them. Some of it's just competitive. With the execs, it was funny. It took forever, and there was a couple meetings, lots of emails. Here, I make a template for you. I'll help you. I'll hold your hand. Marion helped me get their accounts all set up, and then once they posted it, it turned into this real competition with who got the most hits. And so I used that to get them to keep going. And now they do it automatically. And because the execs on our product and our BU want to do it and know that it's easy to do, they expect everyone to do it. So
cultural shifts can take a while. Yeah. I don't know, James, you want to jump in?
Yeah, well, talking about the fear piece specifically, I'm not in that space. I do it on my own. So I've talked to a lot of people that their biggest fear with blogging, for instance, is they don't want someone to tell them they're wrong.
Yep.
They don't want somebody to say, wait a minute, what you wrote is wrong. That's not right. They feel like you're going to get judged. But the way I look at it is, if somebody's going to critique what I've written, then I'm learning something. Because if I was wrong, then so be it. I need to know the right way.
The art of being wrong.
It's basically, that's a good way to put it. The art of being wrong is to be able to take that critique, give me and tell me I'm wrong.
That's where the fear comes, though, I think, because technical people, not everybody, but online, people kind of lose their minds online sometimes. They're rude and they're mean. And so that's where the fear, I think, because I have that fear still of I read, especially if it's for work, I read it, make sure it's all right. Because you can spell a word wrong or put a comma in the wrong place, and some people will make sure that you know about that. Let alone
grammar
Nazis. The technical point wrong.
That's exactly right. I agree with that. I think that the technical part you can debate out, but I think the personal part is hard. And I think in some ways, just know that I think we're lucky to be part of a community of practice where there is a lot of kindness. Yes, there are definitely those trolls, but I think that when you do the right thing, and again, intent is in the right place, people will come behind you. So it's okay to jump out there. It is terrifying. People always laugh, but I consider myself an introvert too. Like John, after all this, I'm going to go read a book somewhere quietly, and you kind of have to overcome that. It is a little uncomfortable, but the reward, it's a risk-reward thing, just like exercise or any other sort of thing that you would do. There's a little pain, but there's gain.
And I don't exercise.
I think there's also, we've talked about the fear side of it. There's a risk to it, because I think Amy's right. Most of the people who are actively engaging in that community, they were the plus ones. They were the people looking for extra credit. And what you quickly find is there's a community who will take and value and give you feedback on as much as you want to provide to them, right? And so it's taken me a while to learn the not every fight is my fight rule, right? That not every technical problem is an invitation for me to jump in and fix it. Not every conversation that goes on immediately needs to turn into me jumping into the lab to see if I can reproduce it or put the first blog post out there about it. So from a risk standpoint, the fear on my side is more that I enjoy it to the point where it's hard sometimes to set boundaries around where are the places that are beneficial for everybody involved for me to get engaged in, and where are the places that I need to that there are lots of great people in the community who can handle different parts of that.
Do we know Can we point to example? Well, I don't want to call out names, but have people been fired because of social media? Going back to, I know people have ruined,
give me
have
time.
developed reputation.
give me time because it'll probably happen.
I think it's one more platform. We were having this discussion actually in Starbucks, and honestly, like it you know.
I mean, even the guy from the U.S. Airways Twitter account didn't get fired.
Well, it's
His agency might have been.
Can you get fired for social media
just
at this point?
Yes, I know someone in the room that has been fired.
People have been fired. Everyone's shaking their head.
Yeah, and you can also be fired for being a douche waffle. You know,
Yeah.
so
Right, I can get
maybe
fired.
don't be one publicly.
That's
Douche waffle.
exclusive of Twitter. Like,
I'm amazed that you fit that into this conversation. You totally fit that into this conversation. That's this year's coined term, by the way. So make sure you hashtag that every time.
I think if you go back to the whole idea that about resources and this is part in our community of practice discussion that we're having. This is our community of practice, but we are part of vendors or organizations where we work, and sometimes it's hard to make that shift where we're here in this community and we know we can throw things around and be technical and fight, and realize that we're.
like douche waffle?
I'm not saying that word.
Right.
That we're part of.
It could be taken out of context. You could get a
point at me, I'll do it
VP
for you.
calling you in their office
Right,
going, what the heck just happened
and
here?
then the politics kick in, and it's really.
Because some automated robot took that tweet and retweeted
It's not
on the
even
corporate
automated, because
one.
when I was at EMC, there was another vendor that was trying to get us to do stuff with them, sent him emails of stuff I had blogged to the VP, called me in the room, and he's like, are you talking? It's just from the fact that I had interactions with this guy. And we got on the same page really quickly, but people don't realize that they can also get, us in trouble by sending it. Or you can just get really carried away like other people in the audience and totally lose your job.
But at the same time, I think it's somebody said to me, like, if
Nobody gets carried away.
you were ever asked to speak in front of a customer, they assume you're an adult. If you're hired by a company to have a good amount of reasonable sense, and it's the same thing. It is just a platform. The converse is that I think being active within the community is a bit of insurance as well. Whenever you are more public, whenever you have that many more connections, and if it can be about making a mistake, it can be about just a shift in the economy. It can be about a change in your role. There are a lot of reasons people lose jobs, not just because they do something on social media, but I think having that community of practice actually gives you some insurance. When things go terribly wrong, I mean, you don't want to think about it that way, but it happens. I'm seeing nodded heads, and I know personal stories, people have come back. It's a great thing to have community when you need it, and you need it before you need it.
Yeah,
so
it's not, you can't, you need it. It's like a job or a loan or anything else, right? You need to develop that before you actually need it. Sure.
I think you have to adjust how active you are based on if things change. Because politics can change like this, and I'm still of the opinion, you got to feed your kids. Yeah, that's job number one. If it's not working and you don't fit anymore, and that's a lot of reasons too.
It's
but
okay to
sometimes
it's
you have
okay to
dial
go to a
down
new job.
make it,
It's okay.
It has to be more than okay. You have to feed your kids. You have to pay the rent. You have to save for retirement.
Well, it's both okay to do your job, and it's okay to go to a new job if the current job is not fitting.
That's right.
If people
and
need
I
bosses,
think,
right?
To Amy's point, if that happens, if you have a change in leadership and you have someone that does not appreciate how active you are, then you dial it down and you use the community to help find you something new.
Before we wrap it up, and if there are questions, I don't know.
Anybody?
I want to. Sure, let's go.
No, it's actually one word. It's coined. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask, moving forward, we are all. I would characterize everybody on this panel as kind of mid-career, more or less, right? You're not starting off right out of college.
Hopefully.
You're not
Until after this panel.
And everybody's pretty hands-on, right? We actually type and speak, and I don't think, is anybody here, people managing have direct reports?
Oh gosh, no.
Or
As long as I can keep from it, no.
So
management influence.
Where does this go? Where are you in 10 years? And if you are managing people or process, you don't have to, but where does it go in 10 years? where does social media, where do you see where do you see yourself in 10 years with regards to these tools and these platforms?
Oh, gosh.
Is it gonna? I guess the last 10 years, it's all been a big party, right? It's been pretty fun. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. Where does this go with your career and with social media, since that's our topic of conversation?
Probably, if I continue this, I'll probably be dead in 10 years. I mean, to be completely honest.
You got to sleep. You got to drink water.
Right. The liver must be punished every time we come here.
Again,
No.
there's the tools in the community, and I think the idea that we are, as technologists, as consumers, as advocates, I think that we are all better off the more and easier ways we have to interact with the community. So that part of it, I think we're seeing big companies realize that trying to sell to individuals who are buying things is a lot more difficult and a lot more time consuming than selling to the community and letting the community kind of bring that up themselves. So from a 10-year out standpoint, I think the community only continues to have more power and influence over how vendors do what they do and how vendors go to market with the products that they have. The tools will continue to evolve. I mean, we're already, like, all of us love Twitter, which just means we're all old. Right. I mean, my nephews, they've got 14 different apps that I've never heard of that are the new hotness from a tool standpoint. But I think the community aspect of that, unless there's some sort of big reckoning that I don't necessarily see, the idea that the community is the place that you go to do that enablement and to build that groundswell for both the products and the technologies, I think, is pretty safe at this point.
A tech reckoning, maybe?
I was thinking that. I was like, you mean like
it's a softball. It just gets lobbed up there.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I think it continues to become more important. I mean, there's all sorts of statistics, but that's not what this is about. But will you be, when you're a VP and of the professional services and field team, for the giant SolidFire massive empire?
Juggernaut, yeah.
Will you still be tweeting? Probably.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think honestly,
have a handler then that doesn't let you do it that much.
Right. I'll be like Onisic and have VPs reading my tweets every day to vet what's going on. But I think at this point, so I've had a couple friends who've gone to jobs where they've said, my job says I can't tweet anymore, or that I'm not allowed to blog anymore. And if I'm honest with myself, yes, job number one is my mortgage doesn't pay itself and my kids don't feed themselves. But it would be real hard for me at this point to voluntarily put myself in a role that wouldn't allow me to be a part of the community the way I want to be.
I think it's become, part of our, at least for the folks that have self-selected this way, part of our professional development.
Yeah. I agree.
For me, it's I want to work myself out of a job. Like, when I've done it right, everybody will be doing this already. Like, it will be integrated and part of the mind. And there will not be a social media department per se. It will be an integrated practice like Gina's describing. It will be, everybody kind of does this naturally, as you say, as they send emails and use the telephone. Everybody will be part of that integrated set. People will participate in different ways. I think there will be leveling, but I think that it will not be such a foreign practice. It will be about people selling to people, and we'll be doing what salespeople have done this whole time. It's just not, we've got a virtual golf course.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. Yeah, I think it also changes the nature of business organizations. I mean, now that I'm a consultant, I'd be happy to come in and sell Dell a multi-million-dollar social business realignment strategy. But it's not. But you've already done it, right? You've already done it.
They got me cheap, so. When I've been laid off twice. The first time I got laid off, I got pulled aside by some of the guys that were mentoring me and said, told me that the things you want to do is stay close to customers and close to product. If you can't do both, do one. So that's going to be me no matter what I do. These are just ways to help me do that. For me, in 10 years, I do a lot with social justice. I have since college, and I see me going off in that way. And whether it's some of the things I'm passionate about, or whether it's helping people know when they're buying genetically modified salmon. I want to use technology and bundle it up so it works.
I think in San Francisco, we see the technology companies that are really kind of going nuts, like Uber, are not necessarily technology companies. That's a taxi company that uses or the transportation company that uses technology.
Right.
That's the next stage of things, and these social media tools are just kind of built into the fabric now,
Right,
and we are the people that know how to use them. So
And that's the point. We are the people that know how to use them. If you think about what these tools are and where we're going with technology in general, I have a huge passion around the fact that we are shaping ways to communicate and laws and everything about data that are impacting the entire world, but there are communities that do not have a say in it and have a huge passion around that, and that's probably that is what I'm starting to think about, how to pursue that.
wrap it up. We got to wrap it up because I think did they already? Are they done? We should. They're about done. Oh, we're storage. No, going nowhere.
They can be nice, that's okay.
Got to wrap it up for the next round. Any advice? We touched on it. Actually, Jeremiah touched on it. If you're at a place where you're not allowed to blog, or that management isn't interested in it, or is really like, what are you doing with your spare time? Why aren't you, doing your TPS reports? Advice. We've talked a little bit about talking about the value. Gina did, and I think any other advice for people who are stuck in that kind of place?
Don't blog about what you're doing at work.
Oh,
I did that for Ed Services for 2 years. Don't blog about. I couldn't, and I didn't because I didn't trust myself. I knew too many timelines.
Yeah.
So don't blog about what you're doing at work if you really need that outlet while you're doing what Jeremiah suggested, using the community to find a different place. Keep up, at home. Just keep up with the community with something you're technically passionate about, so you keep out there, and then you'll find better connections and maybe find a job doing what you're really passionate about, which would be way better anyways.
And rebrand yourself. You said I didn't actually give you a title, and it's intentional because I'm Marketing Manager 3 at Cisco, which is deeply meaningful, when you introduce yourself that way. So do position what you're doing in a way that's consumable and acceptable for the people you work for and with. Woo! See, they're so into this advice.
Storage must be exciting.
Said nobody ever.
Said nobody ever.
Like backup.
Sorry.
Language are so exciting.
Branding works. In the end, branding works. And if you find that you're not happy, change it because it will not get better unless you do something about it.
And it's deliberate. I think everything that we do in this community, or everything that we do socially, everything we do, part of our jobs or personally, don't think that it's going to happen by accident, right? Or if it does happen by accident, it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. So be deliberate around what you want from it. Be deliberate around the people you want in it. Be deliberate around the limits that you set. And I think the more you go into it being assertive and deliberate about how you want to participate in the community, the more you'll get out of it what you need.
And don't just think about it. Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Say it out loud.
One quick thing, if you want to rebrand yourself, pick a title and put in a help desk ticket, change it in the global address list.
I think that's Amy's. Go into LinkedIn and give yourself the title you want.
Yeah, give yourself the title you want. Eventually they'll go along with it.
Global address list, then you can get business cards with that title. It's a global address list.
There you go. Corporate.
For good,
things.
not evil.
Corporate
Yeah,
hacking.
corporate
All right.
hacks.
Question?
Sorry, real quick. I know you guys talked earlier about social media mistakes. Is that question? Handle the inevitable social media faux pas.
Stand in front
Acknowledge
of
it and move on.
Apologize. Own it.
Yeah.
Own it, move on.
Own it.
Own it and move on.
I think there was one of
I
those
think,
last night,
I think
actually.
James teaches the 300 level class of that.
Yes.
Every week.
Because if you want to know about social media faux pas, okay.
And
I think I'm good at that.
One freebie for the road is the sorority girl trick. I was not in a sorority, but somebody taught me years ago, if you're getting your picture taken, put your drink down. Like, just a little tip for VMworld. If you're getting your selfie taken, put the drink down. And trust me, you'll just get less grief.
Yeah, but the good news about the community is we can continue this conversation as long as you guys want to.
Yep.
Yes.
Right up here.
Yeah.
Thank our panelists.
That was a good one.